Hey, what's going on, everybody? I hope you guys are having a great day. I'm Dr. Boyce Watkins from Your Black World and the Black Business School. And I'm going to give you guys time to come into the conversation as we begin this discussion. Today, we're having a very important conversation about a brother that you guys should really know about. He's out of Cleveland. His name was Winston Willis. And Winston was a tremendous soldier in the fight for black empowerment, for lack of a better phrase. He did some extraordinary work in Cleveland, and his work was so impactful that he has people that are working very hard to make sure the community knows about him as the hero that he really is. And so to help to share this important conversation on this platform, I want to welcome my good brother, student minister Roland Muhammad. How you doing today, brother?
I'm doing fine, Dr. Boyce. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing extremely well, very well. Welcome to Dr. Boyce TV. Everybody in here who's watching, they know that this is the home for intelligent Black people. We're looking for the talented 10th, the talented 10th in intelligence, and the talented 10th in vision, the talented 10th in ambition, the talented 10th in building. And so that's what you're at. So if you're part of the talented 10th, then come on in here. The other 90%, we'll come get them later. But right now, we try to get the leaders off the plantation and into freedom. And so everybody who's watching, do me a favor to support this conversation I'm having with my brother. Please, first of all, hit the thumbs up button. Also, state your city, your business, and your dream. Your city, your business, or your dream. One of the three or all three, because we're big dreamers here, and I want to see what your dreams are, and I want you to share your dreams with the world. Brother Muhammad, let me say this as we start the conversation. I'm gonna shut up in a minute, brother. I'm gonna let you do all the talking because it's your platform. You had reached out to me, and you were basically letting me know that this brother Winston Willis is somebody that everybody should know about. And I was really impressed with what you sent me, to the point where I said, okay, absolutely, let's do this conversation. Can you start maybe in the beginning, maybe introduce the audience to Winston Willis, who he was, what he represented, and generally speaking, what made you want to come on here today?
Thank you very much, Dr. Boyce. The reason why is because I knew him as a young man when I worked at the Coca-Cola bottling company, and actually did a pop to him in his stores. And all of a sudden, he started having issues with the city of Cleveland, the courts, and whatnot. And finally, he had an incident where he was eventually arrested. And you probably read that in the article, where he was eventually arrested. And all of a sudden, he was off the scene. So about a couple of months ago, an article came out in a magazine called Pressure Light. And one of the young men that I am associated with, young men, a couple of twins named Daryl Washington and Danielle Washington, brought my attention to the magazine. And we read the outstanding story about him. And we thought perhaps maybe he was dead. I heard he was in nursing home, but we didn't know anything primarily about his condition or what was happening at this moment. So what we did is that we got on the internet and researched and found that the story was written by his sister, sister Audrey Williams Carrasco. So we read all the stories that she put out, and as we read the stories, then we wanted to find out where Willis was, because we heard he was in a nursing home. And there's a nursing home that's owned by Blacks in the city of Cleveland, and I visit there often. And I went there to ask the owner. I know the owner of the nursing home. I wanted to ask him, is there a directory which I can find if the individual is in a nursing home? Is there a directory that we can go to and try to find out where this person at? And he said, well, who are you asking for? I said, I'm asking for Winston Willis. He said, he's here. He's been here a year and about 3 or 4 months. He's up on the second floor. So we went up on the second floor, and he said, well, come on, let me take you to see him. So I went on the second floor, and here he is, Mr. Winston Willis, in this nursing home. He's looking strong, talking strong, but yet he's in this nursing home. So what I decided to do is that I talked for a few minutes, and I said, there was a lot of young men that are interested in you and what your work that you did. And so what I did is that I went back, and I gathered up the young men and a couple of his friends, and we went back to see him, and there was about 8 or 10 of us. We had a good time and talked with him. And so that was my involvement with him. And thereafter, then we started communicating with his sister, And she began to communicate back with us and give us various information and gave us other articles that she'd written because she was with him the whole time when he was fighting his battle with the courts. And this situation went all his lawsuit went all the way up to the Supreme Court, and everything that he tried to do was denied. And so we read that, and so then we finally decided to, well, okay, well, let me go back and see what we can do to assist him. So in talking to him, we found out he has a sound mind. He's very, very intelligent. He's very, very witty. But his desire is to continue his fight, to try to retrieve his properties and get compensation for all the land that he's taken from him. And so we decided to get engaged to try to help spread his word because a man of that magnitude doesn't need to be sitting in a nursing home and nobody knows about him. And then he was such a phenomenal giant in the city of Cleveland back in the early and late 60s. His great friend was Carl B. Stokes, who was the mayor, and W.O. Walker was the publisher called the Post. And those two that tried to assist him, and they did as much they could until they retired. And finally, after they was off the scene, then the powers that be really came down on it.
Okay, well, everybody who's watching, I'm speaking with Student Minister Roland Muhammad, and we're talking about the story of the great Winston Willis, who had a pretty big fight over land and property in Cleveland, having to do with the Cleveland Clinic. If you've been to Cleveland, you'll know that they have this amazing sprawling medical complex that they built in the 1960s, 1970s. And as they do with many projects, and maybe my brother can tell me if I'm accurate on this, there a lot of times there'll be some black folks in the way, some land that we own, and they will push people out. Universities are still doing this because now they've got all the money because they're taking black wealth because we're sending all of our children to college, putting them $100,000 in debt, and the universities are sitting on all this money. So they're buying up entire neighborhoods. When I was at Syracuse University, I remember how to this day, they're just buying up more and more of the black communities that are around the campus. And it kind of pushes us out. And Winston actually fought against this, right? So, I mean, the parts I read of his story, it looked like he wasn't an easy fight for them, that he was actually giving them a lot of pushback. Can you kind of talk about that in terms of, how they sort of approached him and, how he sort of, I guess, deviated from the expectation in terms of him being the pushover that they thought he was going to be?
Yeah, well, he was a great young man. He was a really phenomenal man. He was so intelligent back up in Alabama. He was born in Birmingham, Alabama. And he was he went to a Catholic school, and he was so intelligent that when he was in the 10th grade, the principal actually visited his mother and father and told him he was too far ahead of his time and he needed to drop out of school. And so he grew up in a family that was middle class, and they was involved most in real estate and business. So he had that entrepreneur community that he grew up into in that family relationship. And so then the family went on the migration, took the migration up to Detroit, and while he was in Detroit, then he learned how to shoot pool real well, and he learned how to shoot dice real good. So everything that he basically touched, he became great at. So he decided to go to California to become a movie producer. And on his way going to California, his family said, "Why don't you go to Cleveland first, get your good meal under your belt, and then take a long trip to California, him and his buddy." And so when he came to Cleveland, because he was good in pool, he decided to visit the pool halls. And because he visited the pool hall, he won a lot of money. And then he saw some property, and he eventually bought property. And one of the major properties that he bought was the Jazz Temple. And the Jazz Temple sat on the corner of Euclid and Mayfield Road. And there was an area between Cleveland Clinic at that time and Mayfield Road was a blighted area. And in that area was the university called University Circle, University Hospital. It was the Museum of Art, Cleveland Museum of Art, and Cleveland Clinic, and this was another one. I can't call it at this point. But anyway, he bought this building and turned it into a showroom in terms of Jazz Temple. And in the process, he built it up real nice. It was in the college area, college, West Missouri. And he set it up and he invited Miles Davis, John Coltrane, Dizzy Gillespie, Cannonball Adderley. He had Red Fox, he had Jake Gregory, Richard Pryor, and several others to come and entertain. And because it was it was like a coffee shop, then the place was crowded every night. And one of the issues that he faced was there was a lot of interracial couples and marriages that showed up, and he had a crowd every night. And he was close to that Italian enclave called Little Italy of Murray Hill. And after a while, after a few years of operating very, very successfully, then they fired from this place and blew it up. And so he took the insurance money and moved a little further up and started buying all that area, all that property. Then after the riots took place, the whites who had dominated the area started moving out. And as they move out, all that land became available. So in a dice game one night, about 3 nights, he won about $500,000, $500,000 from the hustlers and the pimp who was engaged.
Wait, I'm sorry, but did you say he won $500,000 in a dice game?
In a 3-day marathon. He had a 3-day marathon, and they was gambling so strong and so hard that the Glenville riot took out what happened the very weekend that they were gambling. And when the marathon ended, he won the money, and he said, well, I'm leaving the game. They wanted to play more. He left, and he took the money, and he was able to maneuver himself around the National Guard police because they were there patrolling the city at that time. And he took the money, split it up, gave it to his sister, and had them put it in various banks. And then because of the whites began to move out of the area. And as they move out, he took his earnings and he started buying all the property. And he ended up buying all the properties from 105 to 107th Street. And that was the spot, that was the area right between University Hospital and Cleveland Clinic. So the business father's white structure, they had planned and they wanted to merge Cleveland Clinic and University Hospital together, and he stood in the way. So as a result of that, he had 28 businesses in the area. He had at least 400 people working for him, and he did that single-handed by himself, right? So finally, they started doing things to try to stop him. Try to take his property away. At that time, Mayor Stokes was the mayor. Carl Stokes was the mayor of Cleveland, and Mayor Stokes interceded a lot to stop them. And they were the right things about him being the Porno King and all these various names, try to give him names that derogatory names that would say that he got his property illegitimate and the whole bit, but he didn't really do that. He actually, won money and made money and actually bought the property legally. And so Mr. W. Walker, who was the publisher of Call the Post, started defending him at every turn. And they was able to ward him off, and he warded off the powers that be that were trying to take on the property. And eventually, after Carl Stokes left office, and either W. Walker resigned and retired from the Call the Post, which was a black-owned newspaper now owned by Don King, then the folks would be united to come against him. And he was so intelligent and so brilliant, he was able to ward them off by himself. A one-man army was able to ward them off by himself. And he used his money at every turn to defend himself in court. But every time he would try to do these things, they would always deny him, and they would use all kind of games against him in order to take and seize his property.
Wow. So everybody,
I'm gonna go more on this story, but I want you to come in now if you have any questions about what I just talked about.
Okay. All right. Well, everybody who just came in, I'm speaking to Student Minister Roland Muhammad. We're talking about Brother Winston Willis, who led a big fight against gentrification that took place in the 1960s and 70s in Cleveland. So basically, if you want to catch up on the story, a lot of the gist of it is that Winston was a brilliant man. He bought a lot of property. He was good at everything, including shooting dice. And when he got a bunch of money, he went and bought a ton of property. And right after the riots, when whites moved out, he didn't move out with them. He moved in. He went in and saw a buying opportunity. And this is something we've talked to you. I've talked to you guys about a lot when we talk about economics and buying property. A lot of you guys are still emotionally affected by the death of Nipsey Hussle. When Nipsey Hussle had that same mindset of buy, own, and buy the stuff that they don't want. You know, that's how Kenny Gamble out in Philadelphia. Kenny Gamble is just basically the OG version of a Nipsey Hussle. He was in the music industry. He made a lot of money. He took his money, went back and bought his own neighborhoods. And now Kenny's a multimillionaire who owns some of the most valuable property in Philadelphia. And so people that have that vision tend to be the ones who are able to build wealth. So wealth is typically built when you're buying, not when everybody else is buying. Wealth is typically built when you're going in, when everybody else is going out. And so, so our neighborhoods have always been gold mines. The question is, do we notice that? Now, do me a favor, everybody. If you're watching, please hit the thumbs up button. Please, if you take 1 second right now. If you haven't hit the thumbs up button and you're on YouTube, please do that. If you're on Facebook, please hit the thumbs up, the share button, share the video. This is the home for intelligent Black people. We need your help. We need you to be foot soldiers in this battle against ignorance. Ignorance is winning right now, but we're catching up. So we need your help to spread the message of Black economic empowerment throughout the world. So please share this video. And if you want to actually support intelligent Black media, you can actually go to intelligentblackpeople.com. That's intelligentblackpeople.com. Become a patron of the platform, patron of the channel, and what we're trying to do. The money goes right back into the community. So Minister Muhammad, let me ask you this question. So you said that basically it sounds like so they didn't want the property because the white folks were moving out. He, being a smart man, Mr. Willis, went in and bought the property. Then they were like, wait a minute, oh, we want to build this big Cleveland clinic and this massive medical complex, and we need to own some of this land that's owned by him. And so it sounds to me like you're saying that they engaged in a lot of underhanded tactics to get this land from him. So first of all, I want to ask this. So Mr. Willis is still alive, is that correct?
Yes, he's still alive. He's in a nursing home. He's in a Black nursing home, and he's doing quite well. Okay,
and how does he feel about this? Like, what is he trying to get his own reparations in the sense that they took things from him that should belong to him, and you all are sort of doing the forefront in terms of campaigning to get them to make things right? Is that pretty much the objective right now?
Yeah, that's the objective, because when you talk to him, that is his main cry. His main cry is that he needs compensation for all the property he stole from him, and as well as money they owe him. And so, and he wanted justice, because in the sense that he fought to go all the way to the Supreme Court shows his determination of justice. And he's a Black man that has a lot of strength, tenacity, and willpower. And he really wants some justice. And so when you talk to him, that is the basic cry. And he owns a lot of other properties that all over the city of Cleveland that he wants to go look at and find some means of how to retrieve his property back, or either get money to compensation back for all that was taken from him.
Okay, so and I agree with you. I mean, this is a reparations conversation. I think the only difference is that this is not reparations for something that happened 100 years ago. This is reparations for something that happened a couple of decades ago. And right. One thing that we also know is that I haven't spent a ton of time in Cleveland, but I remember how massive that medical complex was, and I know that that those facilities, I know they're sitting on hundreds of millions of dollars, maybe billions of dollars worth of value, and they could easily cut checks to rectify the wrongs that were done to steal that land. And I think it seems like to me it's really a matter of political will. You know, for example, you got white women that are screaming "Me Too" over things that happened in the 1970s and 1980s where they ain't even got no evidence, and people are making that right. Well, I think Black people need to also scream "Me Too," you know, and talk about, you know, when this land and property was taken from us, this wealth. I mean, this is intergenerational wealth transfer that this brother was trying to participate in. And it sounds to me like they just flat out broke the rules to take it from him. They used racism to do that. Is that accurate, or what do you think?
Yeah, indeed, they broke every rule possible. His business was so successful, and the area that he had all his business, it was flooded with black people 24 hours, 7 days a week. So he became a multimillionaire as a result of that. But most of his money was spent in legal fees fighting the battle. And they came with all kind of false fire inspection, foreclosures. They came with all kind of issues that they used against him to try to take his property. But he was so brilliant in the courtroom that he was able to stave them off for a long period of time.
Interesting. So, it really it reminds me, when you talk about what Dr. Claude Anderson writes about in books like Powernomics and stuff like that, it reminds me that economics is warfare, it is warfare. It's not a polite little game. It's a game where the people play dirty. Even in Los Angeles, where Nipsey Hussle, who was becoming a real estate mogul in LA, where he gets killed, I've gotten 2 or 3 calls from people on the West Coast who have basically said, that the real estate issue might have played a part in how all this happened, and that there was an effort to take away that property that he was sitting on. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but it's not as if that's out of the question. People have killed for land. They've done underhanded things for land. There was a brother in Chicago who had a restaurant, a thriving, beautiful restaurant. It was a restaurant, like a restaurant club, and he put it in the north side where mostly white people live, and they did not want him there because he attracted all the black folks. He attracted, the bougie Negroes like me. I guess I'm bougie because I got my little education. I came in my little suit, looking all sharp and everything. But in all seriousness though, like a lot of black folks wanted to come to this club, and they got uncomfortable with all these black people coming to this guy's club. So they started doing what you were talking about. They would call in these fire inspections, and they would come in right, Friday night, right when your restaurant's packed, and shut you down. Or they would say, oh, your liquor license is expired, but it really didn't, and it's an administrative error. But they're doing everything they can to ruin your business, and it almost seems like we have to really be diligent to fight about that. It almost seems like if we're going to be quick to protest over, police brutality or over some of these other issues, we should be protesting things like that and fighting back with things like that. What's happening in Cleveland? What kind of momentum and support in the local Cleveland area amongst the black community is Mr. Willis getting to at least draw attention to the fact that this Cleveland clinic owes the community at least $100 million worth of reparations? What's going on in Cleveland with this?
Well, there's no fight right now other than the fight that we're trying to take up ourselves. The only real fight is his sister, Andrea Willis. She's the one that has been writing stories, writing blogs, and posting everything on the internet about him. But we didn't know anything about that until the Pressure Life magazine came, where she did an interview. And as a result of that, we began to discover all the things that really happened to Mr. Willis. And so what we are there to is to help her in her story, to help make sure that her story reached the public, to find out what's going on. And she's been fighting for the last 20 years. And Mr. Willis has been in a nursing home for the last 20 years, not knowing anything about him, his whereabouts, or his presence. But the Pressure Life magazine is what brought this issue back to life. And we credit her for because she was by his side in all this court appearance. She's the one that helped do the brief, go to Supreme Court, and she had this desire and love for her brother, and she would like to see his justice. So she saw that together. She abandoned her career as a screenwriter to go into trying to do a thing to make her brother's story known. And so we're here primarily to assist her in that way to make it known. And also, we trying to bring awareness to all his friends that didn't know where he worked. Now I'm trying to make it supreme enough to make sure that all his friends come to his aid at this point. And so that's where we are at this point right now. But during the time of his fight, the only defense he had at that time was the publisher of the Call Post, Mr. W.O. Walker, who took Winston as his son and would always kind of like counsel him and told him that he was waging a one-man battle against the forces, and he had to be careful. And Carl Stokes was at the mayor, and he would stop any kind of move against him to take his property. And so when they got out of office, then the forces who had galvanized against him, and since he only had those two defenders, for him. Then when that happened, then they came down on him, and they came down in a most stupid way, a simple way that could be rectified in, but just in a second. But they used that as an excuse to lock him up and put him in prison.
Mm.
Now, I'm gonna tell you what that was. In a few minutes, after you ask me some more questions, I'm gonna tell you what they really used against his brother to take down his empire.
Wow. Wow. I'll tell you what, I think that when you talk about stuff like this, and you talk about the injustices that are out there, the first thought that goes to my mind, brother minister, is that, I don't, I feel like everything that we hear about is usually the tip of the iceberg. Like we just, Winston Willis's story is one of thousands of stories that have happened all throughout time. And it has created this massive wealth gap, and people won't acknowledge it. America won't acknowledge it. And they still show up and ask us to vote for their politicians and all that. And I pretty much told them, I'm not voting for nobody if you're not going to talk about what you stole from us. If you don't get back what you stole from me, you're not going to get my vote. I also think that we need to have almost like an economic version of a CSI, where we go and reopen the case on a lot of these things that have happened in the 60s, the 50s, the 40s, the 30s, the 20s, the 10s before that, right? Where we go back and the historians, this is why people like Dr. Claude Anderson's are so important, is because they give us that history that we don't get in school. They erase all of that. It's like when I went to Tulsa, Oklahoma, I was absolutely stunned by how many Black people didn't even know what happened with Black Wall Street Massacre. They had no idea, and so that's what happens, I think, when you let your master, your enemy, educate your children. They're going to make sure that they erase all the crimes that were committed against your people. And so I think these atrocities have to be revisited as if they're happening right now. And I also think, and again, this is for anybody out here who's really thinking about, the Nipsey Hussle thing. If you care about any of that, if you are affected by that on any level, just understand, Nipsey Hussle, myself, or people, we're not the first Black people to try to build something. We're not the first. They had brilliant Black men and women 100 years ago who was trying to build, and they got lynched for it. The brilliant Black people trying to build who had everything stolen from them, ran out of town, were falsely incarcerated, like Marcus Garvey and others. There's thousands of them, and so I think the best respect we can show for our people is to love ourselves enough to do an economic version of a CSI, reopen the cases, reopen all of that, put it back on the table, and say, hey, we're not moving forward one step with you until you address this and this and this and this and this. They owe you trillions of dollars, trillions. So, brother, let me ask you this. What can people do if people want to help and support? Is there like a website or some place they can contact where they can offer their support to what you have going on in Cleveland to try to make things right on this particular issue?
No, we don't have anything set up at this moment. What we're basically doing is trying to set it up and make people aware in the city of Cleveland who didn't know where his whereabouts. In fact, the people in the nursing home didn't know who he was. And so that was an issue, so we had to kind of inform some of the people who he was. And so we're in the process of doing that. What we are in contact with her sister, and I think she's listening at the moment. We're in contact, and she's an avid listener of yourself along with her son. And so we are trying to support her and direct as much attention to her and allow her to ask her to help us in the way that she could. In the meantime, what we are actually doing is trying to make the city of Cleveland aware that he exists, and we need to support him because of all the good work that he did in Cleveland, but primarily what as an individual, as a person, as a human being, he showed godlike strength and talent. He showed that godlike intelligence, and he showed godlike strength to fight against a lone man, fighting against all these forces. I mean, that's impressive. That's very impressive of what he actually did, and also witnessed this. And he was bold enough to put up big billboards when he couldn't get justice in the court. He erected billboards and had one of the local artists showing all the injustice taking place. He put up big messages on his billboards behind his building, and it became a tourist attraction. And one of the billboard shows a cartoon picture of him kicking the prosecutor in the behind, and with his foot. And he exposed every injustice that the city of Cleveland was doing, the court system was doing. And so that kind of, in a sense, what he did kind of ward them off a little bit. So they weren't able to get him for anything, and they were able to take his property. But what they did, all they did is that, now check this out, Dr. Boys. What he finally did, there was a $400 check that was written from his office to a vendor. The check wasn't signed, right? And he got busted off a $400 check. Now the process happened was that he had several accounts at this black bank, First National Bank. And somehow they went to the bank owner and told him to remove the money from the account that the bank was designated, the check was designated to. So therefore the check bounced. Then they went to the vendor who received the check to have them to file charges against him for giving a bogus check. Then they arrested him for a bogus check. And when they arrested him, they put him in jail. And when they put him in jail, they took him to 5 prisons, and only one prison accepted him. And they got a call overnight to accept him because the other one refused to accept him because there was no criminal justification for accepting him in prison. Then they put him away for 7 days, and while they put him away for 7 days, then they went and took all his property, bulldozed all his property down, closed his property, and took all that area. So now all that area now that he once had, Cleveland Clinic University occupied this, and his empire lay as ruins underneath Cleveland Clinic.
Wow. That's pretty much how warfare works, and it's unfortunate we have so many black people who don't understand that they're at war. You think you think your enemy is your friend, and your enemy does things like this. They tear you down. If you just look at just what tends to occur when you're talking about black folks that are trying to build something, there's always going to be efforts to discredit you. There's always going to be efforts to make other black people afraid of you, and I think it's interesting. And it even makes me reflect, Brother Minister, on how many black people there are, when I watch YouTube videos and stuff like that, there are so many black people that work extra hard to discredit even other black people, and they kind of run past all the white people that are robbing black people blind. But it's like, I want to go after that black person. So we contribute to it as well. So it's ironic, because I'm willing to bet you that when this brother was going through this, that there were people in his own community, who said, yeah, see, I told you that Negro was a crook. I told you that he was out here, and it's sick. It's a mental illness, and so I'll say this. I think two things I'm gaining from this conversation I've learned from you today. One is I think Brother Willis should be respected as a hero of the community. I think that we need to make sure that we are deciding who our heroes are going to be, instead of running around worshiping people like George Washington, who owned slaves and raped black women for a living. Put Winston Willis somewhere, in that list of people that your children need to look up to. We need to make our own heroes. Number two, I want to help, so what I want to just say definitely publicly right here is that, once you put something together, once you all put up a website, a GoFundMe campaign, or you're doing any kind of rallies, anything in the community, send that information over to us, and I will share it with everybody who listens to me, everybody out here, because I think that this is a way we can make some progress. And I think the community is ready to get behind this, because I think right now, I know a lot of people, I don't know if you guys feel the same way, but I know a lot of us are mourning over what happened with Nipsey Hussle. Well, just remember that these battles are being fought in every hood across America. Every hood in the world right now is fighting this kind of battle. So there's plenty of battles you can jump into. Just don't sit on the sidelines. So brother, I'll let you get the last word before we head on out of here. Anything else you'd like to add?
Well, what I want to add is the fact that the greatness of the man himself and what he represented. And by us being young businessmen, we got a business group that we work with. We work with a lot of young barbers and beauticians. Then he becomes a great role model for them. You know what I mean? And then we need to have those who are living, we be able to have access to them, talk to them, and get all kinds of wisdom and knowledge from those individuals because they went through the trials and tribulations and they made the human sacrifice. And there's a history of what they had to go through, which we can study and emulate ourselves and correct all the injustices along the way. So what our thought is that we need to have this man's life and history preserved. We need to, like, be able to bring him to the forefront where he can feel that he has some justice done and that people are now ready to support him in his cause. And so that's what we're working on, and that's what I like to see. And when you really talk to him, you have this great admiration. I mean, the way when you talk to Dr. Claude Anderson, here's a man of stature, here's a man of greatness, had his trials and tribulations, but he's continued to fight. And Winston Willis falls in that same category. He's an unsung hero, and he's one of the greatest ones in Cleveland because he's the only one that ever reached that capacity to do what he did. You had Jim Brown, the Black Economic Union, who did what he did, and then you had Carl Stokes, who really set the standard, for the first Black to be a major metropolitan city. And so Cleveland has a lot of good history. And when it comes to entrepreneurship and business, then, the legacy is written by Jim, the legacy is written by Carl Stokes. But we need to have a legacy written by Mr. Winston Willis. And so our pursuit, is to help his sister, attain that. And whatever she would like done and whatever we can actually put together, we would definitely get it to you, to have your continued support, So his legacy will not be forgotten and he will not be, in some nursing home, but he need to be in a capsule.
Well, I love it. I can't wait. If you have a book that you all put out, a movie, anything, you shoot it over to us, and we'll be part of your distribution network. We will partner with you the same way we partner with Tariq Nasheed when Hidden Colors comes out. I reach out to Tariq and I say, hey, let's do a partnership where we can help you, push this message out because we have to build our own distribution channels to economically support our ability to create our own heroes. We did our own legends in the community, and because there's too many great Black people that die without anybody knowing who they were. There's too many. The graveyard is full of Black people who have amazing stories, who have accomplished amazing things, and y'all don't never know nothing about them because you're spending all your time worshiping white people. Like, that's just the reality of it all. Why do you put George Washington, a slave owner and a rapist, ahead of all the great Black people who fought for your liberation and putting you in a position to have the freedom you have right now? We ought to be ashamed of ourselves, myself included. So I want to say thank you very much to my brother, student minister Roland Muhammad. The brother's name that we were talking about today is Mr. Winston Willis out of Cleveland. I encourage you to Google his name, hear his story. I'll bring it back when they send me more information. I will share it with you guys. Also, do me a favor, if you're on social media anywhere and you haven't done it yet, please stop right now, hit that thumbs up button. I need you to hit the thumbs up button. Also share the video. We are on iTunes now. So if you have iTunes, look for my name on iTunes and you can subscribe to the podcast and hear it on iTunes. Also, last but not least, if you want to support intelligent Black media and we give you free stuff, it's not a donation, it's an investment that goes right back into the community because we're trying to reach as many millions of people as we can. This month we had a record month. We finally crossed over 100 million views on all of our videos. 100 million. That's how many people we've reached or how many views we've had over time. And now we're trying to go for 200 million. So we can't do it without your help. So please go to intelligentblackpeople.com. That's intelligentblackpeople.com. I assure you, you will get more of this. Our goal is to mass produce Black education and push it as hard as we push hip hop and basketball. We need as many intellects as we have rappers. We need as many scholars as we have athletes. We need as many intelligent Black people as we have Black people that know how to do the electric slide. That's what we're going to do in this generation. And with your help, I know we can achieve that goal. So thank you one more time, my brother, student minister Roland Muhammad. I appreciate you very much.
Yeah, thank you, sir. All right, bye now.
All right, have a wonderful day, sir. See you guys soon. Bye-bye now.